Hi, I'm reporter Richard Rellis here with columnist Robert Robb outside the Songbird in central Phoenix. This drought contingency plan, it's been worked over. People have been in long, arduous meetings. We're close to an agreement, and the governor's telling everybody, let's just pass the thing. Let's row the same way. Let's not make waves. And of course, Bob Robb is here to tell us.
I think we should do some of that, but we shouldn't go clear across. We shouldn't row clear across the river. This is being dealt with as one whole, and I think there's actually two parts, and that they should be bifurcated. There is the agreement.
Bifurcated means split in two.
There is the agreement that we've reached with the other Colorado Basin states to increase the cuts that we would take in the event of a deficiency on Lake Mead. There's really no reason not to sign that, and not to sign that by the 31st. The second part is the plan that's been negotiated to share those cuts. And I think that plan is deeply flawed and ought not to go forward, and that the legislature shouldn't approve particularly the appropriations that are being asked to implement it.
Do you think there's an appetite in the legislature or in the governor's office for just saying we're going to cut the water supply by this much and then we'll figure it out down the road?
So far, the feeling has been that the legislature wouldn't be willing to do that they wouldn't be willing to authorize the additional cuts without understanding what the likely consequences are. Given the January 31st deadline, and given how deeply flawed I believe that the agreement is, particularly with respect to appropriations, I think it's time to rethink that. There's really no conceivable circumstances in which it would make sense for us not to agree with the other states on the additional cuts, because other states are also agreeing, the upper basin states are agreeing to keep money flowing to Lake Mead, and other states are agreeing to take a larger share of the cuts than Arizona otherwise would be stuck with. So signing that makes sense under any circumstances. Proceeding with state appropriations to develop groundwater,
right, the granular details of everything you think can be worked out.
County, paying people not to accept water that probably wouldn't be available anyway, that doesn't make sense to me.
We've also heard about this scary January 31st deadline, that if we don't pass it by then, the feds take over. You don't think it's that scary?
I do not. There is a agreement among the states dating back to 2007 of how cuts are going to be allocated if Lake Mead drops below certain levels. There's really no reason for the Bureau to upend that agreement. And it would take a long time for the Bureau to develop an alternative plan.
The federal government is not exactly swift, is what you're saying.
Correct.
So,
and they're furloughed. So, but to me, there's no reason not to meet the January 31st deadline to agree with the parameters of the cuts while continuing to work on how we're going to implement them.
and we have a few weeks. We'll see if the legislature takes Bob Robb's advice.
Rarely.